But yeah. I know I haven't talked about this in forever. But
it's sad.
Yeah, I know.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to my series about recovery. With my special guest this week. Don't know who this is.
I'm Laura. My name's Laura Clary.
Huh, interesting. I wanted to ask you about all the questions that I get about people saying, how do I help my partner who's an alcoholic or an addict in their disease? How do I help them and what can I do? And I told them all that I'm going to do an episode with you about that subject, because everyone seems to want to know how they can help a partner who's struggling and either won't admit or does admit they're an alcoholic but still won't get help.
Yeah.
And we've both been through that situation.
We have.
And to your experience, I want you to tell them what you went through and how you navigated that.
It seems to be an issue for a lot of people.
Yes.
So it's a tricky one because, and I know you've talked about this in past videos, that you can't save them. They have to want to get better. So you kind of feel a bit powerless in that respect. But we've both been through it.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll just say quickly, when Stephen and I met, we were both sober.
Yes.
And that was always a condition, for both of us, is that whoever we were going to be in a relationship with would be sober because our sobriety was so important to us. And if you're with someone who's drinking and using, you're most likely going to
relapse as well, right?
Relapse as well, yeah. So I think we had been together for 5 years?
Yeah.
Or so?
Yeah, because when I moved here, I had 5 years. And then when I relapsed, I had 10 years. So it was 5 years into...
So we were probably together 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And then, I can't remember like the exact moment that I figured it out, but it was a weird one. It wasn't like one day Stephen just came home and was like, I'm drinking again, fuck you.
Well, I didn't actually drink again.
No, I know.
But yeah.
So it was like, he had been in a car accident, said he had some back pain and some sleeping problems, and then it was anxiety. So there were like a couple different things happening.
Yeah.
And so I remember he was going to the doctor and getting prescribed these drugs. And at first I just kind of thought, okay, well, they're doctor prescribed.
Yeah.
And then I started noticing a difference in his behavior. And it wasn't before long that I figured that you were abusing drugs. I would hear, pills in the bathroom. I would hear the shaking of the bottles in the bathroom. And I would notice slurring and just a difference in your behavior. Sometimes you'd have these like episodes where you just didn't handle our arguments well. I think at one point you were banging your head against the door. We had gotten in some argument.
Oh my God.
And you were just banging your head. And I think I took you to the emergency room.
I remember that.
And it was like on my way to set, I was like filming a show that I had co-created. And so I literally was taking Stephen to the ER and then going to film this thing.
I remember that. That's one of the only things I remember from that time, because I was blacked out most of the time, but I do remember that.
Yeah. And I couldn't quite tell, like, were you really high? Were you blacked out? Were you just...
Oh my God, I just remembered. That day in that hospital, that was the first time someone said to me, you're because they took my blood, and the doctor was like, holy, what the hell, how much Oxycontin and Vicodin are you taking? Because they found it in my blood. That was the first time that someone actually said, he was like, you are gonna die if you don't stop. He actually said that. I just remembered, I forgot, that was the day that the guy was like, something bad's gonna happen to you if you keep doing this.
Holy shit.
He said it because of that.
So when he said that, did it sink in at all? A little bit? Did part of you say, oh shit, I am gonna die?
Yeah, but
were you in denial? Like, do you remember how you felt about that?
I remember thinking, I will forget about this when I get some more of these painkillers down.
Really?
Yeah.
So you just weren't done?
No. Even that.
So the doctor at the hospital told you...
Yeah, because they took my blood and he said, these are dangerous levels of opiates in your system. I remember him coming back in the room and saying, this is a dangerous amount you're taking. This is way too much.
Okay. So the doctor at the hospital couldn't convince them, even after saying, like, you're going to die if you carry on taking this amount. I think who was sober at the time throughout all of this, what I did was, first I was probably in a bit of denial because you're my soulmate. And so I thought, oh, I'm gonna potentially lose him to drugs. I can't process that. I can't process that. So I'm just gonna ignore it and pretend it's not happening. I think I went through that for maybe a couple weeks. Could have been longer, I don't know. Then the behavior started getting so erratic that it was affecting me to the point where I was like, shit, if I stay around this, I'm going to be next. I'm going to go out next. I'm going to join him in this drug-fueled life. So the behavior started becoming more and more erratic. And like Stephen would be like, I'm going to Swingers, which is this like local cafe that's open all night down the street at like 3 a.m. He'd be like, I'm going to Swingers on my bike. And he'd leave and he'd come back all like bloody. I fell over on my bike.
I used to fall over all the time because I was on so many.
Yeah, and just like, there was lies. There was, you were just different. You were just and so was I. I was a horrible person a lot of the time when I was using and drinking. So like, I don't blame you.
Right.
And I would say, even though sometimes you could get nasty and scary, I never hated you. I always could see that you were sick and struggling. Because you'd
experienced.
Exactly. So I didn't demonize your behavior. Right. What I would do is I would call my sponsor and I would say, like, he's in denial. I know he's abusing these prescription drugs, but he's still coming to meetings with me. He's still claiming he's sober. Yeah. So how am I supposed to confront the situation when you're in denial? So in Stephen's mind, it was, I'm still sober, taking a cake, going to meetings in denial because they were doctor prescribed.
Yeah.
So,
but I was going to multiple doctors, so it didn't actually count.
Right. Yeah. Right. So he was just deep in his addiction, and I kind of knew at that point that I was powerless. So what do you do? Well, I'll just bring it back to me because I can't tell you what to do. I called my sponsor. She strongly advised me to go to this program called Al-Anon. Al-Anon is a recovery program for friends and family members of alcoholics. If you have a friend, family member, spouse, sibling, whatever it is, who's an alcoholic or drug addict, this program is super, super effective. They give you tons of tools on how to deal with living with an addict. One of the things that I took away was you can only tell them to get, ask them to get sober once. Saying it every day doesn't do anything. You say it once and then you move on. Another thing was keep the focus on yourself. The more you dig deep into yourself and get better yourself rather than trying to cover and take care of the addict, the more clarity you have. And then oftentimes the addict sees you thriving and wants what you have. So it's really interesting to go, instead of your whole life being revolved around the addict, keep the focus on yourself and getting yourself better in things that you can control. So I found that the second I stopped cleaning up after Stephen, there was one time we were in London and he was off his face, and he was like doing some big movie and had a meeting with the directors, and he was fucking falling asleep during this meeting with these directors in this like fancy hotel. And I was like fucking waking him up and then charming the directors to try and like keep the job happening. And it was like, you know, you're how do I say it? Just like cleaning up after your enabling. I was enabling. Okay, and then it got to the point where the behavior was too erratic, too scary. And even though I never stopped loving Stephen, I knew if I stayed with him, then I was going to relapse as well, and it would be the death of me too, and I didn't want to die. So I had to make the decision to leave. And this was, you know, we were married maybe 4 years at the time. And I never stopped loving you, so it was a really, really hard thing.
Yeah.
So I called my sponsor and I said, you know, I think I'm ready to leave. But I'm scared to tell him because you were so unstable at the time. You were doing things like threatening suicide, things like that. So I knew it wasn't safe to tell him. So I had to have an exit plan. So I started looking for apartments, things like that, secretly. Stephen had no idea. And I had found a place. I found a little guest house that I could barely afford. And it was like, fully furnished, so I didn't have to buy all new furniture. And I was just kind of making plans on getting out of this once stable, now completely unstable and drug-filled relationship. So it was crazy. I found the apartment. I was like ready to go. And I'm not kidding you. This was all secret. Stephen had no idea. Did you have an idea?
No.
You had no idea?
I had no idea.
Okay. So Stephen comes home. I'm not kidding. Like probably a couple days after I had sorted out my new living situation. And he comes home and he goes, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, I remember you just came home and you had this moment of clarity.
I did.
Where you were spinning around and you were just like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
This is going to kill me. I can't do this. Laura, I can't do this. I have to stop. I have to stop.
Something literally spoke to me, and I can't describe it in any other way than that.
Yeah.
And basically said, stop. That's what it was. That's what happened. This sounds weird, but that's what happened.
Yeah. So the crazy thing was when I was enabling Stephen, his addiction was full force.
Yeah,
When
I didn't
I
have any
s-
consequences.
Yeah. When I started getting into Al-Anon, keeping the focus on myself, things I could control, calling my sponsor, calling someone and saying, what do I do about this? Write it out, forgive him, lovingly detach. There were all these tools that were given to me to keep the focus on me rather than trying to take care of him. When I started doing that, and then even to the point of finding a new place to live and, doing the things that I had to do, even though they were extremely hard. What do you know? He comes home and says, I can't do this anymore. It wasn't because I said, you can't do this anymore. You have to get clean. You need to do this or I'm leaving. It wasn't that.
You didn't even say that.
It wasn't that. I secretly and was keeping the focus on me, figuring it out. And he came home voluntarily and said, I can't do this anymore. He broke down and he threw all of his pills down the toilet, which now we know you're not supposed to do. Poor fish. They were having a good old party, those fish. But he poured all the pills down the toilet and said, I'm done.
Yeah.
Well, about a couple hours after that, I still hadn't told him that I was planning on leaving, separating. I never wanted to get a divorce. I still had hope that he would get clean in the end. So I didn't give up, but I knew I needed to distance myself. I knew I needed to separate and have my own space and let him hit his bottom and go through what he needs to and pray to God that if we're meant to be, we'll be. And if we're not, we won't. And I had to say that over and over. If we're meant to be, we'll be. It's this or something better. And I'm pretty sure it's this. But
It's sad,
yeah. Yeah. I know I haven't talked about this in forever. But
Bloody sad.
Yeah, I know. But it's not, though. It's actually a very happy.
Well, it worked out, didn't it?
Yeah. So I had to keep, saying, if we're meant to be, we'll be. If we're meant to be, we'll be. I never gave up, but I knew I needed to separate.
Yeah.
And let you hit your bottom to not only help you, but to help me too.
Yeah.
So he throws the pills down the toilet. Well, if you're taking the amount that Stephen was taking, and you stop cold turkey, you don't medically detox, you could die. Well, we didn't really know this either. So all of a sudden, a couple hours after he had thrown the pills out, maybe it was like midnight or something, and he was laying in bed and he kept saying, I can see dark clouds coming over me. I can see dark clouds coming over me. They're coming to get me. They're coming to get me.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Oh.
Yeah. And so I called someone in the program and I said, hey, here's our situation. Stephen was abusing, what was it?
OxyContin, Vicodin, Ambien, and Xanax.
Right. I'm taking a lot of them. So I said, he stopped cold turkey and now he's seeing dark clouds over him. What do we do? And they said, go to the ER right now.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. So we hopped in the car, drove to the ER, got in there. The doctor was like the biggest dick, clearly did not understand addiction. I said, my husband just stopped taking all of these drugs cold turkey, and now he's seeing things and he's not in a good place. He needs help. And he was like, why wouldn't you just take the prescribed amount? What's wrong with you? This boy is like dying and he's the doctor's judging him. That's another story, but
he did that.
He had no conception of like addiction and that it's a disease, and it was just really sad. But I was like screaming at the doctor, like, he needs help. And the doctor was like, okay, here's the bed, I'll be back in a bit. Doctor leaves, Stephen's lying on the bed. Before I know it, he goes into a full seizure. He's convulsing, shaking, no joke, turning blue. Then he gets stiff. So I literally am seeing blue and stiff after like a massive seizure. So I'm screaming so loud, help, 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 and convinced that he's dead or dying. All the nurses come in, the doctor comes in, they pull up the defibrillator, whatever it's called, to put on your heart, and they're putting all this stuff on you, and you're stiff, and I'm screaming and crying, and then they pull me out of the room and they put me in this room down the hall, and lock the door, and I'm with a nurse in that room, and I'm convinced that, they're trying to resuscitate you. So I am just like completely hysterical, and they come and they get me about, 10, 15 minutes later, and they say he's okay. And I come in and Stephen like could barely remember like my name for a minute. Like he was just so out of it. And then they said to me, you need to get him into a medical detox center like now. And I was like, okay, well, how do we get there? And they're like, you drive him. And I'm like, what if he has another seizure when I'm on the way? I'm petrified that he's going to go into full seizure on our way to the detox center.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was crazy.
What did they do?
They said, go. They said he probably won't.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so I find one in Tarzana.
Yeah.
A place called Tarzana Treatment Center, and
which I've been back to since to give talks.
Yeah.
It's hardcore in there.
It's hardcore. So we went, they had a bed for him, and I dropped him there, and he started his journey to recovery.
Yeah.
So I dropped him there and he started medically detoxing. It was like a jail you couldn't touch.
Yeah,
I
you couldn't
remember
touch, yeah.
I went to visit you and I like went to hug you and they were like, hands off,
Yeah.
because they didn't want me giving him drugs or whatever.
It was like a proper jail, wasn't it? My first rehab I went to 10 years before was nice. I was expecting this to be nice.
The last thing you needed was nice.
No, exactly.
You needed to get humble.
The nice detox centers don't actually do very much because they make you feel special and different.
Right.
Which is what you don't want as an addict.
Oh, totally.
That Tarzana treatment center was amazing for me because it really knocked made my ego right-sized.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
So then he finished the detox and I picked him up and I still hadn't told him my plan of leaving. And you guys might think I sound incredibly heartless, but even though Stephen was on his road to recovery, I still didn't know if it would stick. I didn't know if okay, you had a moment, you seizured, you went to medical detox, but are you going to stay sober? I know that in order to stay sober, you have to really put it above everything else. You have to put it above work, above your relationships, above your kids, above your pets, above your parents. It's anything you put before sobriety, you're at risk of losing. And I knew that Stephen had to put this first, and I didn't know that he was going to be committed to do that yet. But he comes home from the 2-week detox and says to me, I'm not ready to go back out there in the real world. Because I remember he was petrified of not being able to work because he didn't want to lose his job.
Yeah.
And that's a big concern for people all over. They don't want to lose their job, but unfortunately, that was a big concern for my cousin Amanda, who died. She didn't want to lose her job. She didn't want to lose her son. Well, she lost both because she didn't put her sobriety first, and it's devastating. So he comes home and he says to me, I'm not ready to go back to work. I'm not ready to be in the real world. I want to do a 30-day all men's rehab. So that was wow, that was this glimmer of hope. I didn't say, you have to go to rehab, you have to get better. Once again, I had surrendered to this is Stephen's life, Stephen's journey. Stephen has his own higher power. He makes his own thoughts and decisions. I cannot force him to be willing. I can't force him to be ready. All I can do is keep the focus on myself and try and get better myself and heal myself. And he'll see that and maybe want what I have. So he came back.
It worked. Yeah.
So he came back and said, I want to go to rehab. I want to work the 12 steps. I want to get better. I want to get sober. And that's what he did. He found a rehab in Pasadena.
Yeah.
And the Gooden Center.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Gooden Center.
Yeah. Two good places.
And I dropped you there.
Yeah.
And I still hadn't told him my plan.
No. I had no idea. I wasn't expecting that.
I think it was... I wanted you to be a little more stable before I told you that I needed to take time.
Yeah.
And I needed Stephen to prove to me that he was actually going to stay sober.
Yeah.
And actually going to live this life.
Yeah.
Very important. So, and again, through this all, never stopped loving him. Never. So I went one of the days to his rehab. He was in there for a couple of weeks, and I had told him that I think it's important that when you get out, I'm going to move out for a couple of months. I got a 3-month lease at this guest house, and I'm just want some time by myself to get better while you get better yourself. I want you to prove to me that you're actually going to work these steps. Because you could say, oh, I want to get sober. Please, if I could tell you the amount of times family members and things have said, okay, I'm done drinking, I'm done drinking. They don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
They don't actually go into a recovery program or take action.
Yeah.
And what do you know? In 4 days, they're back drinking again. I grew up with that. So those empty promises, which by the way, a lot of alcoholics mean well. They mean I'm not going to drink again.
Oh, you mean it when you say it.
You mean it. But then you don't actually take action.
You don't have any defense against the first drink, like it says in the book.
Totally, because you haven't done anything.
Yeah.
And so you inevitably go back to self-medicating.
Yeah.
So I knew like he actually had to work a program, get a sponsor, put it before anything else, and then I would consider coming back. So I told him that, hey, I found this place, and when you come back, you take care of the cats. And I'm gonna, move 10 minutes away, and I want to take some time, and I want to see your progress.
Yeah.
And do you remember that?
I remember that very well, yeah. And I went and got a sponsor, and for 2 weeks, I didn't do anything for a couple of weeks while I just found a sponsor I went to another meeting and found another sponsor, and I just worked the steps very quickly. Like I just spent, I went through them in a couple of weeks, I think, or maybe a month. Very quickly. It was everything was about that. Yeah, my whole focus was about getting better. And I even went to make amends to your mum and dad. Went to fly to Chicago in a couple of weeks. Because I went through really quick. I didn't think my sponsor took me through really quickly because he was like, you got to get back on the horse, no bullshit, just go, and we're just going to go through it quick. He didn't say quick, but we're going to go through it, and it just happened very quickly.
That gift of desperation.
Yeah, I was desperate. Yeah, desperate. So.
But what a gift! What a gift that you were desperate.
Yeah, and
So when he was on step 8, which is the amends step, or
step 9 is the amends step.
Yeah, so step 8 is making the list of people that you owe an amends to. Step 9 is actually making those amends, because a big principle in Alcoholics Anonymous and in most programs of recovery is keeping your side of the street clean. So, because if you're living with this guilt every day, the chances of you going back out and like self-medicating and using over them are very high. But if you've made your amends and you're keeping your side of the street clean and you're leading a life with love and tolerance and righting where you've wronged, you're just more likely to stay clean because you're not riddled with guilt and shame.
That's right.
So it makes sense, right? It's pretty logical. So anyway, Stephen flew to Downers Grove, Illinois, where I'm from, 15 miles west of Chicago. He flew there in the rain and made amends to my parents. Tell them this story.
What about the rain? Going to the wrong...
So he gets a cab from the airport.
I remember, I want to have a little walk
the cab driver's taking them to the house where I grew up.
Yeah, and I remember I'd like to have a little walk while I get out of the cab. I don't just want to be right at the house. I want to have a little walk to gather my thoughts. I remember there's a grocery store called the Jewel Osco right down the road. So I said to the cab driver, take me to the Jewel Osco, and he took me to the Jewel Osco. 7 or 8 miles away in a thunderstorm. There's more than one Jewel Osco. I didn't know that.
Stephen thought there was just one Jewel Osco, so he was like, drop me at the Jewel Osco and I'll walk right to Laura's parents' house, because he knew there was a Jewel Osco a couple blocks from my house. Well, there's literally hundreds of Jewel Oscos in the Midwest.
I had no idea. So he took me to one on the freeway. It was even on the freeway. It took me 8 hours to walk.
And it was a thunderstorm.
It was a thunderstorm. I had a bunch of flowers. They all got ruined. Turned up at the house like a drowned rat.
Yep, he shows up on my parents' front door, sopping wet with these flowers.
My sponsor advised me, which is good, to write a letter and say, if there's difficult amends, a good idea is to actually write a letter and then just read it out. That was really good for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my mom apparently took it well, and my dad is so awkward with confrontation. Stephen's pouring his heart out in this really vulnerable letter, apologizing for all the hurt he'd caused them and their daughter. And my dad's response was, so have you been working out lately? You know, when you bring the iPad to the gym, it makes it so much more fun. I've got Led Zeppelin on there. I've
just wanted to make conversation.
It's like such a dad thing to like avoid the confrontation and talk about like iPods.
Yeah, I want to say one thing as well. That thing about look after the cats. I looked after those cats. 2 weeks, I was really careful. They didn't get out. They were inside. They were fed. The minute she comes over, leaves the door open, the cats escaped. So you let the cats escape. We got them back.
That is a whole other story, but yes, that is true. So Stephen gets back from rehab and he's working his steps and he's going to meetings every day and he's calling me saying, I love you. And, you know, I'm taking the phone calls and of course I love you too. Mm-hmm. And then about a couple weeks after Stephen gets out of rehab and I'm in my, that guest house, that tiny guest house, he calls me and he says, can I take you on a date? And, I was apprehensive, but I said yes, and he comes to my door with flowers.
Yeah, I did.
And we went to that restaurant, Cafe Gratitude, remember?
Oh, yeah!
It's like this vegan, hippy-dippy restaurant where, like, the waiter comes up to you and they always ask you some, like, kind of cheesy question before they take your order, like, just want to know what you guys are grateful for today, or, like, what makes you guys happy? And then Stephen's like, butts make me happy.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah, butts. Yeah. But I can't remember what they asked that day. But anyway, so we kind of started the dating process over again. He would come take me out on a date maybe like once a week. And I stayed there for those 3 months and Stephen worked those 12 steps. And I truly saw a light go on in him. And I know that he's a better man now than he was even before that relapse.
I think
something about it, something about that near-death experience, hitting that bottom.
Yeah, I didn't have
it was like the biggest blessing ever that you got to that low, even though it was absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
But letting you go was the best decision I ever made.
Because if you didn't do that, I wouldn't have had that experience.
Yes.
It would have been kept. Yeah, they say it would have robbed me of my bottom.
Yes.
So you got to let loved ones sometimes hit bottom.
Yes, and that is probably one of the hardest things that you'll ever have to do, because you love them. You'll never stop loving them, and that's what makes it heartbreaking. But the thing that kept me going was saying to myself over and over, trust, live in faith, trust. If you're supposed to be with this person, you will. If you're not, you won't. It's God's will. You know how like in the third step, they talk about surrendering and not running the show. So running the show would have been like, this is my soulmate. He's going to be the person I'm with forever. And that's going to happen. And Stephen's using, and it's okay. We're fine. Running the show, trying to make it work. That would have ended in tears.
Yeah.
And probably death.
Yeah.
But when I surrendered and said, okay, show me, universe, what is the next step? Trust that if we're meant to be together, we will. And it's bigger than me. And I'm powerless over it. When I would practice that daily surrender and acceptance, that's what got me through it. Accept the things I cannot change, have the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I accept that Stephen is in his addiction right now. I accept it. I cannot change that. have the courage to change the things I can. What can I do? I can go to Al-Anon. I can call my sponsor. I can write about it. I can go to meetings. I can stay connected to people that make me feel good. And I can, take that act of faith and walk away and trust that, if we're meant to be, we'll be.
Yeah.
Am I asking myself throughout the day, am I acting in a place of faith or fear? Faith or fear? Fear would have kept me in.
You used to give me a little card through the whole rehab period, through the whole period of me going into detox and rehab, and it said, take my fear and replace it with faith. I've still got it.
Yes.
That was incredible
thing
to say.
That was a huge prayer that removed my fear and replaced it with faith. And I still say that every single morning. I don't consider myself religious, but spiritual. I believe in a higher power. I don't exactly know what that is, but I pray to it. I know that's weird, but I do, and it keeps me sober. Mm-hmm. And so I say every morning, God, please remove my fear and replace it with faith, and help me to be of service in whatever way you see fit. That's it. That's my morning prayer.
It's a really good one.
Yeah.
I really
remove
like that.
my fear, replace it with faith, and help me to serve in whatever way you see fit.
Yeah.
And that's, by the way, another thing that got me out was, who have I helped today? Am I in service every day? So if I was thinking about me, oh my gosh, I could lose my husband. Oh, things aren't going the way I want. That's me. But when I'm thinking about how I can help others, what a great distraction. Just help others. So we have a happy ending.
We do.
Yeah. So eventually, after maybe the 4th or 5th date, I finished out my 3 months, and we decided, okay, let's give this another try. Stephen worked all 12 steps.
Yeah.
I saw the light go off. It wasn't that he said I'm better. It was that I saw that he was better. I could see it. And I was like, wow, this man has had what I believe to be a spiritual awakening.
Yeah, I did. I definitely did.
And what is a spiritual awakening? Everyone defines it differently.
Yeah.
How I define it is a shift from fear to love, a shift in your perception of how you live and view the world. He shifted in such a profound, beautiful way. This man that I did not trust, because he would lie, because that's what we do in our addiction. We lie to keep the addiction going.
Yeah.
Lying and angry and mean-spirited was now kind and loving and tolerant and honest and vulnerable and funny and loving and hysterical and passionate, and would make eye contact. And it was like, whoa, something has shifted in you.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And here we are.
Yeah.
That's 6
crazy.
years?
6 years ago. 6.5. 6.5? 6 years ago, yeah.
6 years ago.
Yeah.
We've got a little kid upstairs sleeping, another one in here.
Oh.
And now that we have kids, man, how important is it to stay sober?
Oh my God, yeah. You you wouldn't be able to be, I don't think I could be a parent if I was using it anyway. It takes up too much focus, and you have to be present. I don't know how people do it.
Yeah. So I guess I hope this answered any questions that you got about how to deal with a loved one who's going through addiction. This is just my personal story.
I didn't expect it to go there.
But I want to say this too. If it doesn't work out, if your partner or parent or sibling does not choose sobriety in the end, that's not the end for you. They're not your world. They're not your life. You have your own higher power, your own purpose, and just trust you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, and it will be okay regardless of what happens around you. I think that's really important to, to know. Like, your world is not over if they decide to keep using. Your world does not have to be over, even though it might feel like that in the moment.
Wow. Well, thank you for telling them all about that. That's, I told them I would get you to tell your story, and that was amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I can't believe he let us do that for an hour without smashing his crib around.
I know. Let's go eat some lunch. I'm starving.
Woo-hoo.
We love you guys so much. Comment below your thoughts, or if you related to anything, or really what you're going through right now.
Yeah.
I took over your series.
No, it's good.
You asked me.
That was great. That was amazing. Thank you so much. Bye.